Hey there, brave adventurers! This is the FoxyBard, here to regale you with tales of both might and misery. So, pour some ale and grab a seat by the fire as we dig into more stories of role-playing. Today we're going to be hearing a few shorter stories, rather than one big long one. I've put timestamps in the description for your convenience. The first story was given to me by a personal friend about a set of circumstances that led to a rather underwhelming combat outcome, but I'll let them tell it in their own words. This was from a past D&D 5e campaign that I had played in. My previous character had just died a couple sessions back, and I chose to bring back an old favorite character of mine, and came up with a really cool backstory, and was excited to develop her in the game. I was playing an Aasimar, divine soul sorcerer, who was actually in love with the goddess that she worshipped, and trying to bring her back to life. So we're going along, and we just entered an undertuned combat. I could see that much from the beginning. So, a very important bit of context. This is a massive group. There were 8 people at the time of this story. For the DM, actually challenging that many players can be pretty difficult. He's succeeded a few times, even killed me once, but without several enemies over a sprawling battlefield to really spread the party thin, things just struggle to pose much of a threat to us. It's why you don't see party sizes that high very often. A particular challenge this session in specific was that the game had been on hiatus for a few months, and this game featured several new to D&D players. That meant a good deal of time was spent teaching and reminding players of what they were capable of doing. It was totally understandable, especially considering the break, but with so many players, that meant that whoever rolled last on initiative was going to be waiting a hot minute to take their turn in combat. And this time, that was me. So, on to the encounter. If my memory serves, it was some kind of aberration. Or rather, 3 of this kind of aberration. I don't specifically remember what, but even beefed up from the base stat block, the first one went down around the 3rd player turn. As the turns went on, the fight stayed quite far away from the fortification where I was stationed. I'd really thought and hoped that the melee would let the enemy approach closer. By the time all the other players took their turns, my only spells that could reach the target were Fireball and Firebolt. There was no safe way to cast Fireball. I couldn't get closer because of said fortification. I only had one decent option. So, I threw a Firebolt. Nat 1. After about an hour of combat, a Nat 1. Oh, fuck me. That's my turn. Oh man, I think we've all been there, if not quite to that extent. Combat is dragging a little, then it finally gets to your turn, only for you to just whiff it really hard on your rolls. Never fun. Thank you to my friend, who knows who they are, for sending me this story. Our next story comes from... hang on, what does this say? There's no name, it just reads, Death was here. Well, that's not ominous at all. And why is this paper blood-stained? Oh well, here we go. So I joined a group partway through... Sorry, I was trying to make a death voice. So I joined a group partway through their campaign and decided to roll up an artificer. The other members of the group were a wizard, a warlock, and a monk. Decidedly fairly traditional fantasy classes. An artificer would be a really interesting addition to an otherwise traditional party. So I show up and immediately the rest of the group starts calling me names and laughing at me because I was playing a modern class rather than pure fantasy. Joke's on them, my modern tech packs a hell of a punch. Cut to a bit later after we've done a few quests as a group. We're out traveling towards our next destination when the rest of the party decides that my artificer's sins of existing while modern were just too much to bear. Initiatives were rolled and combat began. An important detail here. I'd worked out a few special weapons with the DM beforehand, namely grenades and missiles. Combine that with artificer guns, and suddenly there's a lot of firepower bearing down on these poor spellcasters. Cue,
I am become death, destroyer of worlds.
Oh, that's where Death Was Here came from. Combat didn't last too long. I was easily the highest damage output of all of us, and combined with the honestly fairly robust defensive capability of your average artificer, my grenades, missiles, and bullets made short work of my supposed friends. In the words of a very wise man,
I've yet to meet one that can outsmart a bullet.
you know, despite the rather ominous introduction to this story, it ended up kind of funny. Having to endure PvP can often be the worst feeling, especially when it's the rest of the party versus yourself, so it's neat to see that turn back around on them. Do not underestimate the power of Bullet. That's it for all the stories today. I really do hope you enjoyed them. I tried to go for a bit of a variety in what I told, but if there's something else you'd like to hear, just let me know. And hey, we're done! Please let me know what you thought in the comments below. I'd also love you so much if you'd feed the algorithm monster with a like or a subscribe, so we can help the channel grow. Until then, let's douse that fire and get back to our own adventures.